Hello, lovely booktube friends. I am here with a very exciting 24-hour readathon video. This whole week I've been participating in the Reading Rush readathon and it's been a blast, and you've probably seen my days 1 through 6 reading vlog. If not, I'll link that in the description below. It was really fun. I read 667 pages and I felt like that was pretty good, but not quite as good as I could do, so I decided to take this Sunday, the 7th and final day of the Reading Rush readathon, to do my very own 24-hour readathon. So it is currently 10 p.m. on Saturday, July 27th, so my 24-hour window of time will begin in 2 hours on the dot. Yes, it is still this bright outside. This is what 10 p.m. in Alaska looks like in the summertime. I'll give you a quick clip of what it looks like outside. Anyway, while the light was still good, I wanted to show you what I'm planning on reading over this next 24-hour period. So I'm currently part of the way through And I Darken by Kiersten White. This book can fulfill the reading challenge of read a book with purple on the cover, and at present I am 194 pages in, and I am also in the middle of reading Keeper of the Lost Cities by Shannon Messenger. I'm also about 190 pages into this, something like that. 192, almost exactly the same. And then I decided that if I get tired of either of those books or I finish them, because why not be ambitious, then I might start reading the illustrated version of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. I have read this before, but the 4th illustrated edition, which is illustrated by Jim Kay, will be coming out this October, and so I decided, you know what, if I read the first one in July, the second one in August, and the third one in September, then I'll be all set and ready to read The Goblet of Fire when it comes out in October. My mind will be refreshed as to the events, and it will be really fun because I absolutely love illustrated books. So I probably won't get very far into that one, but I figure it would be a good little fun respite if I get tired of the other ones, or like I said, if I finish them both. So I'm not sure what a good page count goal would be, but I'm kind of gunning for 500. I think I can do it. Do you think I can do it? I bet I can read 500 pages in a day. So tomorrow is a Sunday, which means I'll just be hanging at home all day, but maybe I can make it a little more interesting and go do some other things too. So we'll just see what happens. I think it's going to be a really relaxing day of sitting right here on this couch and right there on that chair and in the other room on my bed, doing a lot of reading. Oh, also if I decide that I don't want to read fantasy, I have started this one by Haruki Murakami, which is Hard-Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World, kind of a surrealist fiction novel, I believe. Okay, let's be real here. There are two things at play. The first is that I am definitively a morning person and not a night owl, so I don't think that I'm going to make it very far. This is more like an effort at the start of my 24-hour readathon than me really thinking I'm going to stay up for very long here. And then the second thing is that I am waiting for my prescription lenses to come in, and it's really hard for me to see right now, especially at night, especially when I'm tired. So this is, we're gonna see how far I'm going to get. Alrighty, it is 1:04 in the morning and I read 74 pages of Keeper of the Lost Cities, so I feel like I did pretty good. I was only planning on reading 50, so I'm going to head to sleep, but I'm going to hopefully get up pretty early and start reading just as soon as I make my green juice and my oatmeal. So I will see you in a second. Good morning. So it's about 8:50 right now, and I just read 66 pages of Keeper of the Lost Cities while eating my breakfast. So far, I'm really enjoying this book. It's a fun adventure. The story follows 12-year-old Sophie, who's always felt a little bit out of touch in the real world, and it turns out that she is actually an elf and belongs in this completely separate realm. This is the first book in a pretty long series, and so this book is really setting up the world, the elven realm, and follows Sophie as she enters into a magical school. So that's a really fun trope, and I've really been enjoying it. It's definitely a quick read. I also listened to about half an hour of A Winter's Promise while I was making my breakfast, so that's around 25 pages. So if we add up the 74 pages from last night with the 66 pages from this morning and the 25, that's what, 165 pages-ish? Okay, so I feel like I'm doing pretty well. I'm going to go take a quick break to get a drink and then maybe listen to some audiobook and do some puzzling. Okay, so here's where we're at. It's 1:44 p.m. I have read 115 pages of Keeper of the Lost Cities today, plus the 74 pages from last night after midnight, which is 189 pages, and then I listened to nearly 3 hours, but not quite 3 hours, of A Winter's Promise audiobook, so I'm assuming that's probably another 130 pages or so, so I'm sitting around 319 pages at the moment. I feel like that's not bad, but it's not great. Like, I would rather do better than that. I still want to double that number for the day, and we're a little bit over halfway, but I did sleep in there for about 6.5 hours, and I'm not planning on sleeping again. I did just take a lunch break. I had miso soup and stir-fried veggies and brownies because balance, and now I'm standing right now. I'm about to sit down on the deck in the sunshine and read for a bit, but to be honest, I might go in because sunshine and I are not friends. I'm definitely more of a sweater weather gal, so. Okay, so it's 4 o'clock and I just finished reading Keeper of the Lost Cities by Shannon Messenger. I read a total of 296 pages of this book today since midnight, and I've also read that approximate 130 pages of A Winter's Promise. So when you add that up, you come to 426 pages-ish, since I'm approximating with the audiobook, but that's pretty good. I do, however, want to get to 668 pages so that I can beat the other 6 days of the readathon combined. So I have a little ways to go, but I have confidence in myself. It's only 4 o'clock. I still have hours to go before the day is over. This is a really fun middle grade novel that follows 12-year-old Sophie Foster, who gets thrust into this new elven realm when she realizes that she's actually an elf and actually has this very special ability. This is a really fun story that follows Sophie as she goes through her first year at a magical academy, as she adjusts to her new life in this new realm. I really appreciate how it focused on friendship and how it focused on the loss of her family as she had to come to this new world. That was definitely something that I felt was a good touch. Overall, I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I thought that it was fun, definitely some room for improvement, but there are, I think, 6 or 7 more books in this series, so there's lots of time for the story to develop further, and I'm definitely going to be checking out the next book soon. So, we come to a crossroads. Where do we go from here? So instead of deciding what book I want to read next, because I'm really not sure if I want to pick up And I Darken, or if I want to pick up the Murakami book that I'm reading, or if I want to go in a completely different direction. I'm looking at The Dream Thieves right now by Maggie Stiefvater on my bookshelf, and I kind of want to pick that one up, so I'm really not sure. So in order to avoid making this decision, I'm gonna go on a bike ride and I'm going to bring my headphones and listen to my audiobook. Perhaps not the safest. You should wear a bike helmet. Don't do this at home, but I'm going to be on a bike path, so I feel pretty safe. We're gonna ignore the safety issues and we're just going to enjoy another hour-ish of listening to A Winter's Promise. Let's go. Okay, I'm all geared up and ready to go. I've got my bike. Well, that was a lovely bike ride. I did get drizzled on a bit, but otherwise it was really nice. Felt so good to be outside. The clouds were lovely, and I listened to another hour, 20 minutes or so of A Winter's Promise, which I'll be talking to you about soon. But first, I'm going to go shower and make dinner. Okay, this is where we're at. It's almost 10 o'clock at night. I read 44 pages of the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. I read 4 pages of Hard-Boiled Wonderland and The Edge of the World and decided that that was not what my brain needed tonight when I was already tired and a little bit headachy. And I listened to a little bit more of A Winter's Promise. So A Winter's Promise is the story of this young girl who lives on basically a floating chunk of the earth that is ruled by a family spirit. And all of the people on this particular chunk of the floating earth are all related to this family spirit. But there are lots of these floating, like, castle in the sky idea, but they're more like cities with surrounding mountains and valleys, etc. And she is one day betrothed to be married to somebody who lives on one of the faraway floating island in the skies. So this is the story of Ophelia traveling to that new place, trying to figure out how to get her feet under her in this new world, trying to figure out the court politics, what's expected of her, trying to navigate through all of the treachery and backstabbing that's going on in that political system, and just figuring out what her place is. What I really like about the story is that Ophelia, the main character, is not brash. She's not the typical female protagonist that's like, I'm a strong warrior goddess, you know. She's just this young book-smart girl who speaks very quietly and is very timid, but she also is doing what it takes to survive and doing what it takes to figure things out and take care of herself. So she's strong, but in a non-intimidating way, which I think is really an interesting take. Also, the writing is extremely whimsical. So the book was originally published in French and has been translated into English, but still with the translation, the writing is just kind of a little bit flowery. It sounds a little bit British almost, but it could be because I'm listening to the audiobook and it's narrated by someone who's British. But overall, I'm really enjoying it, but not absolutely loving it. Maybe it's just not the right time for me to be reading it. I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm a little bit tired right now and a little bit headachy, but I did take some aspirin, so I'm going to try to read a little bit more. Let's talk about page count. So I read 296 pages of Keeper of the Lost Cities. I read 4 pages of Hard-Boiled Wonderland at the Edge of the World. I read 44 pages of the 5th season, and I listened to approximately 4 hours of the audiobook for A Winter's Promise, which, if I was saying each hour was approximately 50 pages, turns out to be 200 extra pages, so I'm currently at a total count for the day of 544 pages. If you add the 667 that I read prior to this during the week, I've read 1,211 pages for the reading rush thus far, which I feel like is a pretty good reading week. Anyway, I'm going to stop filming myself now because I look a little bit of a mess. This is what happens when I go outside in the rain. I'm feeling a little bit uncertain. I'm not sure what I want to pick up next. It would make sense to just pick up And I Darken because that was part of my TBR for today. That's what I really wanted to read. But I just don't know if I'm in the mood for it. I just have 190-ish books that I haven't read, and I don't know if I'm in the mood for any of them. I've been kind of wanting to pick this one up again. I started reading it many a year ago and never finished, and I don't know. It kind of appeals to me now, so I might try this one. We, the people of the historic seaport, so heralds a sign on the highway, of Newburyport, put great stock in our civic past. It's how we compensate for having no contemporary relevance. Okay, it is the next day. The reading rush is officially over. I ended up staying up pretty late last night, but I didn't get that much more reading in. I did read 21 pages of Spinster, Making a Life of One's Own by Kate Bollock. So far, so good. It's very interesting. It's a nonfiction story about a woman who chose to focus on her career instead of having a family and the ramifications that she's experienced socially because of that. And it's kind of an expose on what it has meant throughout the ages to be a woman who chooses not to enter into marriage. I did also listen to a little bit more of A Winter's Promise on audiobook. Because I never figured out exactly how many pages per hour, I was just guesstimating that it was about 50, and so with the amount of audiobook that I listened to and the 296 pages that I read of Keeper of the Lost Cities, I ended up listening or reading a total of approximately 540 pages yesterday, which I feel like is pretty good. It's not quite my goal. My original goal was to hit 667 so that I could equal or surpass the number of pages that I had read combined on the first 6 days of the reading rush. But I feel like reading over 500 pages in a day is still definitely a win. Anyhow, when you add together the first 6 days and the 7th day of the readathon, I ended up reading a sum total of over 1,200 pages. Over 1,200 pages is pretty darn good if you ask me. I really enjoyed my time reading with the reading rush, and I'm considering doing a specific wrap-up video. I think I probably will with the reading rush so that I can talk about which challenges I completed and such. Whew, okay, anyway, I've got to go, but I hope you guys are having a beautiful day or night wherever you are, and until next time, I'm sending you love.